In this lesson, we are going to take a look at the outliner, channel box, and the attribute editor. And I am also going to show you guys the modeling toolkit, but let's just go out of the modeling toolkit. So let's start with the outliner. Outliner is just like layers in Photoshop. If you are familiar with Photoshop, the outliner shouldn't be that difficult for you to understand, but it's a little bit different from the way it works in Photoshop. So let's assume we have multiple objects in our scene. We have cube, we have cone, we have cylinder, and we just decide to separate all these things into different part in our viewport. Now, when you look at the outliner, you can see that we have P cube 1, P cone 1, and P cylinder 1. I know you must be wondering what that P is all about. The P is referring to polygon or poly, which you can see right here, but we get into that later on. Now you can see from the outliner, everything we have here in our scene, it's available from the outliner. You can also organize your object through the outliner. You can group, you can rename, you can just arrange it the way you want it. But this is going to work in form of 3D, not in form of 2D like what we have in Photoshop. There is nothing like you dragging the P cylinder above the P cone and think that it is going to move this to front just like the way it does in Photoshop or most 2D applications that you are making use of. It is totally different. It's just for you to stay organized from your outliner here. Now, if you want to rename this, let's assume you just want to take away the P and the 1, you just want to name all these with the rename so that you don't get confused later. For you to do that, you just need to go over to the object you want to rename, double click on that, and it is going to enable the option for you renaming it. So you can just type in cube and hit on enter. It is going to rename it for you. You can also repeat that for other object. Now, if you want to group, you have two ways of doing it. You can select two items from the outliner and hit on Ctrl G, and that is going to group it. Now, when you group, you are going to get this little square and a plus icon inside of it, telling you that you have two objects inside of this group. And when you press that plus icon, you are going to see the cube and the code. Now, if maybe you are supposed to group this cylinder alongside with the cone and the cube, but you forgot to do that, or you mistakenly did not do it, all you have to do is just a middle mouse click, drag and drop it inside the group, and everything is going to be inside the group. Now, if you also want to rename the group, you just have to double click on the group name and you will be able to rename the group, and you can just give the group anything. Yeah, I'm just gonna give that anything. So it depends on how you want to rename it. It all really depends on you. And there is also another way you can easily group without selecting the object. Now, if I want to group this cone and this cube together, I can just middle mouse click and drag the cube and put it on top of the cone. You can see as I put my mouse cursor on top of the cone, it is giving me this selection around the cube, which is telling me that if I release the middle mouse click, it is going to place this cube inside of a group with this code. So if I release it, it is going to be inside here. Now the cone is now a parent to the cube, which is this here. But if I select this, I can move both of them together. So these are the things you need to understand about how you can make use of the outliner. If I did not explain this well, let me quickly show you, or let me quickly tell you. Now, this cone is now a parent, and why this cube is now a child. Now, you can also move this cube separately, but you can't move the cone without moving a cube, which is telling you that this is a parent. Now, imagine you go out with your mom or your dad when you are small, as a child, you can play around where your dad is. You can just play around. But when it is time for your dad to go home, what is he going to do? He is going to call you or take you home. That is what this is telling us about. Now we can move this cube alone. So this cube is just the child and the cube is playing around. Why this cone is the father. So when the cone is about to move, it has to take the cube alongside with him. That is what is going on here. So the difference between this is that this is a parent, and why the other one, it's a group. These are the things you need to keep in mind. Now, if I want to take this P cylinder above the cone, just like a way for me to keep my outliner organized, I can just middle mouse click and drag the cylinder and move it above the cone. The moment I see this only single line, not this kind of line, when I see the single line, I'm just going to release the middle mouse click and it is going to place the cylinder above the code. Now, if you want to select multiple objects from the outliner, you can just click and hold down Control and select multiple objects. Now, the way you select multiple objects from the viewport is different from the way you select multiple objects from the outliner. From the outliner, when you want to select, you hold down Control. Right from the viewport, if you want to select, you hold down Shift to select multiple objects. Don't get yourself confused. This is very important. Now let's take a look at the channel box. The channel box, it's where you can easily do some kind of transformation. Now if I click on this cube, you can see that it translates X and everything is 0. The scale is set to 1 by default. The scale in Maya, it's always set to 1. But when I click on this cylinder, you can see that we have translate X is 5.1, and when we select the cone, you can see that the translate X is minus 4.798. Now from this channel box, we can easily transform our object in our scene. So let's say I want to scale this cone just by extra 1. I can just come down to this part here, select the X, hit on 2, select here, hit on 2, select here, hit on 2. Now you can see that my cone has been scaled up. Now if I want to reset this back to the center without coming to this part here and moving the cone manually, I can just go into the translate X from here, highlight everything, or just click, or you can also just from here move your mouse side is left and right depending, but I can just click, hit on 0, hit on enter, and that is going to reset the cone back to the center. So this is the use of the outliner, of the first part of the outliner. So where we have shapes, this is just like, you can see that we have inputs. Whatever thing you do to your mesh, it is going to be here. We'll get into that later on in this lesson when we start modeling. And this layer part, it's a little bit tricky. You can make use of these layers to lock things in your Maya. You can also make use of this to reference things in Maya. We'll also get to that when we start modeling or start importing reference in Maya. Then you will be able to understand the use very well. Coming over to the attribute editor, there is nothing much here, just for you to understand that you can change some properties and do some adjustment to your mesh from the attribute editor. The attribute editor, it's something I really don't need to explain much now, because we are definitely going to make use of the attribute editor later on in Maya, and you are going to understand a lot of it. But just for a quick note for you to understand what the attribute editor is all about, it's all about giving you different kinds of attributes of the particular shape you have in your scene. So let's say I want to add multiple subdivision to this cube. I can select the cube and go to polycube 1 from here. I can come down to this part that says subdivision width, subdivision height, and subdivision depth. I can say I want this to be 5, just 5. Select I want this to be 5 and I want this to be 5. Now you can see what we've done right here. So you can do all this with the attribute editor, and when you start applying materials, you can also apply a material through the attribute editor. So there is no one way you can skip the attribute editor That is why I don't want to touch the attribute editor initially. So let's come down to the part that says modeling toolkit. I should cover this later on, but since we are going around the whole panels, I just really want to touch this and show you guys. Now we'll talk about the modeling toolkit. This has to do with modeling in Maya. Anything modeling related, this is it right here, but we don't have everything like the inside edge loop tool. We don't have it here, but you can also get the inside edge loop tool from another menu, and we are also going to touch that. All these settings, I'm not going to touch them, but when we start modeling, when we need something from here, we are going to take it from here, and I am going to explain that to you. And right here we have the components of a particular shape, which we are also going to touch. So these are just the most important panels you are going to find yourself using in Maya, which is very important, and you are going to see that in this course. So just take out your time, navigate through the Maya, through your interface, do something crazy. If you want to model, go ahead and model. It already depends on you. In the next lesson, we are going to take a look at hotkeys. There is nothing really much about the hotkeys which we need to keep in mind, but I'm just going to give you guys the important ones that you are going to find yourself making using of when you are modeling in Maya. See you guys in the next lesson.